Welcome back to another edition of Inside BBI with John and Eric. I'm John McDevitt, and with me, as always, senior editor of Big Blue Interactive, Mr. Eric Kennedy. And Eric, we've got our merch across the bottom, folks. Pretty soon, my stuff is coming. I can't wait to show what I have to drink in that glass. We'll start with you, though. I know you've got just a glass. What you drinking tonight, there?
Perlenbacher. So.
Oh, okay.
Same old boring stuff. I get stuff and go through it. You seem to have like a different.
I had a shit ton of stuff. I'm like, I went a little overboard during the summer. So I'm having the Voodoo Ranger Danger Beach IPA. It's okay.
Seriously, how much beer do you buy at one time? Are you buying individual cans? Or
I bought. Some of these come in 4-packs or 6-packs. I told you I spent like $125.
Yeah, I know.
On beer that day. So anyway.
All right.
Whatever. So. We're back. The Giants have just concluded their the 2 days of joint practices with the Jets. Today was was it a walkthrough or something today?
They originally had a practice on the schedule, and I think it was always going to be a walkthrough. One of the beat reporters said, I think it was Dan again. I think he said they changed it to a walkthrough. It was the same thing that they did last week. They had it listed as a practice, but they did a walkthrough, so it was a walkthrough. They had two hard practices. Today was going to be light anyways. So who practiced and didn't practice on Wednesday, I think is going to indicate who's playing in the game. And we got some good news on that front. I'm sure we're going to talk about.
Yeah. And I think we want to focus on that. I think some of it we want to come back to. So maybe let's start in kind of a reverse order. Let's start with some of the positive things, and let's start on the defensive side of the ball then on just kind of what we saw from these 2 days. Because one big thing that I got from this first time, we've talked about this before. There's a different vibe with this team, but there's something going on right now with that leadership of Burns and Lawrence. Even you can put Thibodeau in there, bring in Carter there. There's just a different vibe with this team, and first time in a long time.
Well, remember a couple podcasts ago, I said Brian Burns is really flying under the radar. Yes. He took over these practices. If you're going to pick one guy from both teams who dominated the practices, both of them, it was Brian Burns. So Abdul Carter is getting a lot of publicity, as he should. Dexter Lawrence is Dexter Lawrence, and he's getting more and more involved because he's coming off that elbow injury, that dislocated elbow that he had last year. So he's ramping it up. But Brian Burns just took over the practices. It was like play after play after play. His name kept coming up, like sack, tackle for a loss, making Justin Fields run for his life, that kind of thing. So he was consistently the guy. And Bob Papa and Carl Banks talked about it today, but other people have talked about it too, that he was basically the star of the practices. And if you saw his press conference, he was even kind of fired up in his press conference, kicked out the rookie. He said, "Get out of here."
That was funny.
Get out of here. It's my turn. And so if knock on wood, he was much better than people think he was last year. And that was with him playing with a bunch of injuries. This year, he looks healthy. Again, knock on wood here. I'm doing that right now. If he stays healthy, I think he's primed for a huge year, especially given the surrounding talent now around him. Because again, who do you double? Who do if you double Dexter, then Brian Burns and Abdul Carter are free. So it's just fun. So, and then because of that, the defense really, both days of the Giants defense was a strong suit of the team. So the Jets really had problems with the Giants defense. And it just seemed that, it didn't matter if it was one-on-ones. It didn't matter if it was the team drills. Some people say, well, the 7-on-7 drills, there were things going on. But 7-on-7 and one-on-one drills in the passing game, you're as a quarterback, if you're not completing those passes, it's not good. So like on one of the days, I think it was Wednesday, Jackson Dart was 6 of 6. You're when you don't have a pass rush, when you don't have people in your face, you should be kind of completing most of those passes. And let's be honest, they've got Garrett Wilson, and he's pretty goddamn good too. So
right.
So I know there were a couple of people on the site that said, "Wow, the 7-on-7s weren't great." You don't worry so much about the 7-on-7s. You worry about the 11-on-11 team drills. That's where, and you kind of want to look at the one-on-one pass rush drills, because that they can tell you something too.
Well, you got to worry about it when there's, when you go send guys to the penalty box. Oh, wait, that's hockey. Yeah, no, we always play with 11 people on the field. So the
Right.
practice is 7-on-7. It's really about accuracy and timing,
Yes.
and the defensive backs. Basically, you're trying to stick with the receivers. You're trying not to get penalties. There's really nothing fully natural that you can take from that to say that's going to happen in a game per se, because there's a lot of other moving parts. It's just the timing pieces. It's kind of it's more individualistic in what you're doing in those 7-on-7s. And you're right, it's all about accuracy. And when you watch a quarterback throw, if you're not making really good throws when you have absolutely no pressure and guys are kind of run free,
Right.
a lot more room on the field when you do that, that would be a real problem.
And it was really curious too, because some people said that too. But then again, I saw a number of the clips of the 7-on-7s, and Justin Fields was missing guys in the 7-on-7s. And then I also saw there were 5 pass breakups in the 7-on-7. So it wasn't that good for them, for
Right.
him either. So the Jets, the best thing I can say is this: the Jets beat writers were very disappointed that the Jets were having so much problem with the Giants defense. And they were marveling at a number of people, including Brian Burns and Abdul Carter. And again, remember, we haven't seen a full dose of Dexter Lawrence yet. Carl Banks said something very interesting today too on the Believe podcast with Bob Papa. He said Kayvon Thibodeau was really setting the edge, and the Jets could not run the ball. Now, I do know that there were 2 Justin Fields scramble or RPO runs that picked up good yardage, which is good practice for us because we're going to be seeing Jaden Daniels. It's good that we see someone like Justin Fields, because they're going to have to they're going to have to see him pretty darn soon. It's only 3 weeks now, 4 weeks now, 3 weeks, right?
3 weeks
opening day.
yeah.
3 weeks now to opening day. But the run defense was good. And Carl Banks knows something about, we had him on here. He knows something about setting the edge. So he said, that he was really setting the edge against the run, and the Jets really couldn't run. And the Jets have a good offensive line. They have 3 first-round draft picks on that offensive line. And so the Jets are not a bad team. They've got a question at quarterback, but the rest of the team is actually pretty good. So this was a good test for them.
Yeah, and I think one of the runs that Fields did, he actually sucked Carter in, so that was brought up, and that's good, right? You got to learn, because everything can't be full bore straight to the quarterback, especially if he takes off around the outside. I like the fact that Burns had an interesting thing that he said in the interview, I believe, after Wednesday's practice, and one of the things is he talked to Dexter Lawrence. He had worked with Dexter Lawrence a lot, and said one of the things he's trying to do is not just rely on his speed and finesse, that he's trying to be more physical, more into this bull rush, so that he can take his game to the next level. And I thought that was very interesting, because he for his size, he's a tall guy. He is kind of lanky as far as, but he actually looks bigger this year. And I like the thought of him playing a little more physical. That makes the tackles have to rely more on, okay, I got to play the guy, not just assume and drop and jump back fast. You got to play it. And he's to take that physical step. That's a big deal, especially when you add Carter in on the other side. Teams can't slide the line one way or the other against this Giants defense right now.
Right. And the other guy whose name kind of sneakily started appearing more and more in the 2 days of practice, it was here and it was there, but you'd see sack, got in the backfield, was Darius Alexander. So people are like, he didn't do anything against the Bills. Where is he? Is this guy a bust? Again, oh my goodness, guys, how long have we all been football fans? Guys don't get drafted and immediately become stars unless they're superstars. Okay, the Michael Strahans of the year of the world even didn't come in. The Dexter Lawrence, and it was Bob Papa brought this up today too. Credit to him. There are people still saying Dexter Lawrence wasn't a first-round draft pick a couple of years into his career, and then he exploded.
Right. Right.
Look, come on. So anyway, so Darius Alexander is starting to play a little bit better, at least in these practices. Again, against the line that isn't bad. They got Tippmann at center, who I think who in hindsight, Tippmann would have been a better pick for the Giants. But so I think it's overall it was good. And what was also good was that Flott was back on the field. Tay Banks missed the second practice. That was worrisome until, again, Bob Papa today sort of said he's been told it's nothing. So that's good news, because we need, regardless of how you feel about Tay Banks, we don't need him missing. We don't need Flott missing because then you get into the Art Greens, and we don't want to go down that path. And
Right.
Trey Hawkins isn't even back yet. So it looks like that's starting to trend in the right direction with the injuries. As long as I don't know if Tay Banks is going to play this weekend, we'll find out. But Flott was back out there, which is good news. And now we get an apples to apples comparison. If Flott plays and Tay doesn't, we'll be able to see. Who's playing better right now in an actual game too. So that was good. And then also defensively, I'm trying to think real quick. Tyler Nubin did get dinged up too, but people said he was giving the thumbs up when they were yelling, are you all right? Now again, if that's a player, we'll see. He didn't leave the field, but again, I think the good news, it looks like the Giants didn't get hurt in this practice. They didn't look like they got any significant injuries, and that's always you worry about stuff when the intensity goes up and they're in the pads and they're hitting. And there were a lot of fights, which was good. And that was the other. We'll get to that when we get to the offense. But was there anything on defense also that I'm forgetting that you?
Well, I think there were a couple of good reports late of DJ Davidson getting some good plays later, and to me that's good. That's a guy that I am sneakily pulling for. I want him to make the team. I want him to be that physical because he's a big guy. He's a big, physical, strong. Right. I think he can give you some versatility. He's not a one, but as long as he's a guy you can play rotationally, the Giants defenses of old had guys that they could bring in on that D line that were pretty strong. John Washington would come in and play solid snaps for the Giants. He would never be considered kind of a one, but he played solid snaps for you. And that's a guy that we kind of want, is somebody else who can come in, give some rest when you can, because that's going to be important. Right. Being that we are somewhat thin in that area, you got to get these guys. Lawrence can't play, 85% of the snaps.
And I saw someone, and I apologize, I can't remember who it said, but they felt that this was Chauncey Golston's best days of practice too. Now nice. he missed some practice early in camp too. We don't, again, one of these unknown injuries, so who knows what he was out. But they said, so it seems to be all sort of coalescing. We'll see how they play against the Jets on Saturday. Again, it's kind of an important preseason. All preseason games aren't really that meaningful, but this is, like you've said repeatedly, this is kind of like the main dress rehearsal usually. Sure. So we want them to come out and play well for as long as they play. But defensively, the Jets, other than, again, the Fields runs, they couldn't run the football, and their pass rush was a nightmare. It was funny. One of the Jets beat reporters said, well, Justin Fields completed something like, I forget the exact number, it was like 11 out of 17 of his passes, but 5 of them would have been sacks. I mean, that's great. So, and remember, the Giants were short at corner too. So, and they said also, a number of people said Paulson Adebo was pretty darn good on the last move, the drive period against Garrett Wilson. They said they moved him with Garrett Wilson. So they had been not moving him with the number one receiver. This is the first time they kind of had him follow somebody, and apparently he did pretty darn well against Garrett Wilson too. So that's a good sign.
And I was going to say, and I'm glad Devito brought it up. Javon Holland, I think he's, another one of those guys. Sometimes when you bring that guy in who just solidifies an area, and I think he's going to solidify. We're young at safety. Mm-hmm. You've got Newman and Belton. We're young. You bring in a Holland. He's got that experience. You bring in, Paulson Adebo on the outside. Those two guys, that whole secondary in reality, it's a whole different group when you think about what you've brought to the table. It's the cornerback too that we still have the questions on, and we'll flesh that out. And we'll talk a little bit more when we preview the specific game. But overall, I think the Giants showed well. Now, I think some of the Jets might be a little overrated, because once you get past Wilson, I can't really name any of their other wide receivers that would kind of scare me per se.
Right.
But when you really
that's true of us too.
That is true. Yeah, no. That is very true. When you think about it, though, our defense really, I kind of feel like it doesn't matter who the receivers are. As long as you can get to the quarterback, that's going to bring some of that, what might be a talent gap. Like you might have a better receiver core versus your defensive backs. That brings that gap down some, because quarterbacks don't have the time. So I think our front is potentially scary good. But again, it is potential until the games are played.
And I think if we had another corner that you and I and everyone else felt really good about, and that doesn't mean Flott or Tay Banks or somebody else might develop into that,
Right.
then we're hoping. Right now, it doesn't look like that, but we're hoping. I think that's the one spot that makes most people a little bit nervous. Is every team perfect everywhere? No. And the Giants have one spot that is probably a weak spot. And if you're playing the New York Football Giants, you want to try to run the ball in 2025. You want to try to run the ball so we don't pin our ears back and get after you, because our pass rush is going to be a problem. Did you see Marcus Spears today, by the way? Did you see that clip from him? He was on who's that guy that's so famous now? The one that always wears muscle shirts. I can't think of his name.
Pat McAfee.
Yeah, he was on Pat McAfee. Did you see Marcus Spears?
I did not.
I just retweeted it. He is fired up on the New York Giants. He even praised the offensive line, but he said they're going to get after it. Anyways, anyone who wants to see it, it's in my X feed. I retweeted it, and I was like, hell yeah, baby! And it's in the forum. It's in the forum. Credit to somebody posted. I apologize. I'll find it, but it'll fire you up. But if you do not want to get in third and second and long against this New York, so you want to try to run the ball. The good news so far, again, has been against Buffalo and against the Jets in the practices. They've been doing well against the run. So if we can do well against the run, then we'll be able to do that. And the other spot is, and we all know it, you're not going to throw at Paulson Adebo. You're going to throw at Tay Banks. You're going to throw at Flott. So that's the one spot that we're all a little bit nervous about still. But the rest of the defense, even Micah McFadden's still making plays. So he's pretty. His name keeps popping up too. Tackle for a loss, blitz, gets a sack. If you're concentrating all these other guys and all of a sudden they just kind of throw Micah McFadden in on a blitz, whoops, and he gets the sack. So. But let me think. Injury-wise, I think the only one that's really out there that is sort of a fly in the ointment, and again, it's not a big one, but Trey Hawkins we don't know when he's going to be back. And I'm talking about the defensive side of the ball, and I think that's it in terms of like the injury situation, as long as Tyler Nubin and Tay Banks are back soon, and it doesn't sound like those are serious.
And looking at a guy like Hawkins, if he's not back soon, right? The clock's ticking. And you brought this up on BBI, BigBlueInteractive.com, for those who don't know. You brought up the fact that there are really only X number of practices left. So if you didn't practice, you're not playing in the game. That's obvious. So now you've only got a couple of really early practices next week.
Maybe only one. I'm not even sure if it's Jan seems to think it's one. So there's not that many practices before cutdown day. We're running
because the game's on Thursday next week.
Before the Jets, obviously, and there wasn't one today. Then we play on Thursday. So they're not going to have a practice on Sunday, and they're not going to have a practice the day before on Wednesday. And I don't know. And one of them is going to be a walkthrough. So I think there's only like one practice next week.
Yeah, so your time is running short. So Hawkins' deal, and we'll talk a little bit more about this, before the show's done, and definitely when we're previewing the game. But Hawkins' deal comes down to the Giants will have 2 short-term IR spots that they can use.
Right.
Hawkins has one advantage in that he's at a position that's very thin for us.
Very thin, yes.
And he has experience with the team. The negative to that is if the Giants didn't think that highly of you before and you didn't play your way on, that's not going to be in your favor. I can't see them using one of those spots on just him, especially if you're dealing with, let's say, for whatever I'm making up, but Skattebo right now has not practiced in a while. That's a guy that could be short-term IR. One of the receivers, maybe Hyatt, if he continues, and we'll talk about him in a minute. If he continues to be injured or doesn't practice enough, he could be short-term IR if they were keeping him. So it's a numbers game on and it's really what you want to do. And I think the Giants may very well put guys that they absolutely want on this team down the road and go and get a veteran. I think we talked about this before. The Giants have done this in the past, right? You brought up Dave Thomas. Sam Madison is a guy. Everson Walls is a guy. The Giants have done this in the past. So I would think whatever happens over these next couple of weeks, it's Tay Banks and Cordell Flott trying to figure out who's going to be the starter. But somebody may not even make the team, and I don't know if it'll be one of those two, but any of the other corners could easily be gone, and the Giants bring a veteran.
I really liked your idea last show when you said bring in a veteran that's just sort of it's just you just will have a floor. You just
Right.
so you don't fall below that floor, and I like that idea. And we threw out some old names from the past, but just somebody who can come in and just won't screw up. Just he might not be the best guy in the world, but he's a vet and he won't leave a guy wide open, and he'll come up and he'll make a tackle, that kind of guy. So it's just something to keep an eye on. I think if you've got somebody like that, and again, it brings maybe a little leadership to the room. So that's something to keep an eye on. It would be very attractive to me unless they're really enamored by somebody who's on this roster. But when I look at this roster, the bottom half of it, unless they like somebody like D. Williams or Fortune more than we think, and maybe they do, I don't know. We'll find out. So,
and one of those guys in that realm, right? I would think they're going to be north of 28. They're going to be like a 29 or 30, or even after that.
Even be in the 30s.
Because the Giants secondary overall is pretty young.
Right.
So you could see a veteran guy that maybe might not have the greatest physical tools anymore, but mentally knows the game very well, and they can count on him if they have to throw him out.
I'm drawing a complete blank. It was somebody had a great idea, another name. The guy that we had in the 2011 season that played for Miami and came here. It was
Sam Madison.
Sam Madison's another eye.
Yes.
So somebody like that. You know what I mean? They're getting rid of him because it's a salary issue and he's older and they're not. Anyway, it's just something to keep an eye on. I would feel a little bit better because I think this defense has got the potential to be scary good. So we'll see. Oh, since we're grouping this together, this is a minor thing, but one thing I'm looking for. Do you want to talk about since we're talking defense, talk about the Jets preseason game a little bit too, or save that?
Yeah, well, I figured we would preview the game. We'll get through the players.
There's one defensive player I want to keep an eye on because they had him high in the rotation against the Bills, but we'll talk about that later. And then on the offensive side, look, you and I ragged on Evan Neal, and we ragged on Jalin Hyatt. Let's give credit to Evan Neal. He got his butt back out there. So thank you. He got back out there. So he missed the Bills game and he missed one of the Jets practices. But I was sure he wasn't going to be there yesterday, and he was. And by all accounts, and there's 3 or 4. I think it's 4. 4 people have said he had a pretty darn good practice against the Jets. And Bob Papa said it was outstanding. But that's Bob Papa.
Right.
Bob Papa said it was outstanding. Carl Banks agreed with him, but Tom Rock said the same thing. John Schmelk said it, and I thought somebody else. But again, consider the sources. But a number of people said he practiced very well against the Jets.
Did you find it odd that there wasn't more talk by a bunch of the other beat writers that were watching a lot of stuff that was going on? No one even kind of said it during the day that he was even on the field. We kept waiting to hear something, and it wasn't until later they're like, oh, he played both left and right guard.
The only thing I'll say, and I wasn't there, but I've been to a ton of training camp practices ever since I was a teenager. When you are standing on a sideline or you don't have your hill like they had in Albany. There was like a hill that's on one end of the practice fields. But when you're in bleachers on the sideline or you're on the sideline, you can't see the interior of the lines. You can't. That's why you rarely hear anything about certain players, linebackers, guards, centers. Sometimes the tackles on the other side, and sometimes they're not even practicing in front of you. They're on a far field and you can't see them. So I said it today. You always take it with a grain of salt when somebody says, I saw John Michael Schmitz today, or I saw Greg Van Roten today, and they stunk. And I'd be like, are you sure you really saw them? Because you can't really see anything when you're standing on the sideline in a training camp practice. Right. So to answer your question, they might not have seen it. I mean, he's a big man, and they could at least said they did say this. They said the starting line, because Luminor's
he had a baby. His wife had a baby.
They had a baby. So the starting line to start the drills was James Hudson. It was Runyon, Schmitz, Van Roten, and then Marcus Bowe. And he's been a success story so far. Again, everyone's starting to think he's been a stud. He hasn't been a stud, but he's been very good. So I'm not trying to be Debbie Downer here, but there's a growth process here. So it'll be up and down, but he looks pretty darn good so far. And then they said later on in the team drills that Evan Neal was in first team right guard. And then they said he was also doing second team left guard. And that's good. So you and I were talking about just earlier, just a couple days ago, is he even going to make the team? Well, I think it's pretty clear he's going to make the team because he's first team and he's back. I think you and I were probably overreacting, probably panicking a little bit because we've seen this
the Giants
before.
bring it on themselves by not giving you any indication of why he was out. And then he was out again, and then just magically shows up that next. I mean, it was a logical assumption on our part that he didn't practice the day before. It's kind of hard. You don't normally see a guy that immediately go in and actually play. You know what I mean? He does like individual drills. He doesn't get in and play.
He wasn't even on the field the day before.
Right.
So I think you and I automatically assumed, oh, Christ, he's out this week and he's not going to play in the preseason. But we jumped the gun. Let's be honest. We jumped the gun on that.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Evan, if you're out there, we're sorry. We're sorry. You're a tough guy and you're going to make it. So, but anyways, I think that's a pretty good
going again.
Yeah, I got the apology thing going again. Neal, if you're out there, who is Neal? I don't know if Neal.
He knows about it. He's all good. He's all good.
All right. So did Neal can he get back in?
Well, that I don't know, but I do know that he knows that the show's going on. He messaged me. He knows he's good. So I'll message him separately and make sure
just make sure we didn't have I did it.
It's okay. Thank you.
All right.
But no.
But again, so I doubt Evan's watching us. We're flipping burgers. So but we owe him an apology. He came back, and so he's still very much in the mix. Jalin Hyatt, on the other hand, we got our hopes up a little high because Brian Dable said, "Yeah, he'll be at practice today," but he must have done some individual drills, and then he was on the sidelines, so he wasn't in 7-on-7s. He wasn't in the 11-on-11. So we're still kind of in a holding pattern with Jalin. I don't even know if he's playing this weekend. So I guess we'll find out for Saturday if he's playing or not.
I mean, that's a fair leap of assumption for us, is that he didn't play in the game last week. He did not take part in the drills he didn't take part in the actual scrimmage or whatever you want to call it. It's hard to think that he'll play in the game. I don't really know what the hell's going on with that guy. It was weird when they talked about him. A couple of people, and I don't know him from anybody else, but the license plate guy, he tends to have some sort of connection.
I knew you were going to pick up on that.
He posted it basically
conspiracy theory on that.
He's kind of hinting at it, and I'm thinking, what did you hear that makes you think that? But his point, minus the end of it, was this is basically at an untenable situation between the two.
He made it sound like there's something else going on there. Now, again, we shouldn't be getting into that because we don't know. We're just speculating. There's a couple of questions here before I lose them here.
Sure.
And wait a minute.
Don't ban anybody.
Yeah. Andrew, you're most likely right, and we were most likely wrong. However, if this was another ankle injury and Neal was going to be out a month, he might have ended up on IR and we might not have seen him again. And then he's a free agent next year and he's gone anyway. So you might have made the team. But what I'm saying is, if there are other offensive linemen on this team that are showing something and Neal's just not available, that's what I was worried about too. It's like because again, a lot of I think people forget how many injuries Neal has had since he's been drafted. It's all been lower body stuff.
And it's every year.
And then when he does play, because he's playing on an injury, he looks terrible. And it's not just his balance and all that. It's because he's been playing on injuries. So you're probably right. But again, if this was a significant injury that he was missing time, I don't know. Anyways, and the other one at Skattebo, no. And Sasha, the problem here is and John brought this up the last time. He's missed a ton of time. He was out all the OTAs. He's missed almost all of training camp. And I like him. This is not me bashing Skattebo, and they were talking about it today. Bob Papa and Carl Banks were talking about this. He's missed a lot of time. So, and Turbo Miller is making a move here. So this is a guy that could start on IR and come off at some point, because the problem it's not like a video game. He can't just come back and just be, he's up to speed. He's missed a ton of time. and he's a rookie. That's exacerbated by the fact that he's a rookie. Now, if anyone can do it, it's probably a running back, but who knows? I really love the guy. He's kind of, that's disappointing. But I think the Giants are handling it the right way. If he pulls his hamstring again, we might not see him this year. That's the problem with hamstrings.
This one, I was just thinking of this, David. I was going to look it up to confirm that I was right, but if I remember correctly, didn't Beckham not he didn't play in the first 2 games? He had a hamstring, and I think he didn't play the first 2 games. I'm going to go back and take a look. Yeah, he played 12 games his rookie year. I'm pretty sure he missed the first 2 games before he got out there. So,
do I say "and again" a lot? Do I say?
Apparently.
Oh, I have to watch that. I know go a lot. I have to watch the. Okay,
so
I'm self-conscious about that.
I want to bring this one up though. So it's interesting that you take that sort of thought process on it. We're not asking the Giants to tell us the specific details, but what I'm saying is you do invite people to then think other things when you are so top secret about stuff that doesn't make any sense. The one that really bothers me right now is, let's switch to the offense. Let's start with the guys that we know are absolutely on the team, and that is Malik Neighbors. All of a sudden, there is this concept where I don't know if Daboll did it on purpose or if it was an accident, but what he said was he's doing everything he can to get back out there. So what is wrong with him that he's working on? Is it the toe? Because there's not a whole lot you're going to do other than just not play.
Well, I know you're not wrong. It's frustrating from a fan perspective, and I've been a fan a long time, and maybe John can correct me, but I don't remember a head coach going back to Bill Parcells that was this secretive. I mean, they've all had their degrees of secrecy, and some of them have outright lied. I brought the story up before. Strahan had a horrific injury one year that some people wouldn't have been playing on. And I was told this by someone who would know, and he wasn't even on the injury report with it. So,
right,
I mean, some of that stuff does happen, and for a reason, because you don't want the opponent, your enemy, to know about your weakness. You don't want somebody to know, he's got a bad knee, and then because they'll target it. So I get that, but some of the stuff is just like the Evan Neal thing we were just talking about. If this was a minor thing, if he did, I'm just making this. He had a hangnail. Just, it's nothing, don't worry about it. It's just some of the stuff is a little bit annoying. It would just be nice to get some transparency.
Just don't be right. Like, you don't have to give details, but why invite speculation, right? That the Hyatt one's a big one. He went through the whole week of practice. If it's a hamstring, say it. If it's not injury related, then just say he's just not practicing. That's all you have to say. But when you go, well, I'm not going to talk about injuries. Well, okay, so that means he's injured. But that's not necessarily, we don't really know what's going on with Hyatt.
Right.
It's very weird. It's a weird situation. I agree with everything that you had said before. We know he put on weight. We know he had a hammy, but he came back and he practiced all week. It wasn't until after the walkthrough that suddenly he's not playing in the game. Right. That's a very odd occurrence.
So Bob Papa and Carl Banks were very pro Evan Neal today. Yay, Evan Neal, he's doing fine. Jalin Hyatt, they were saying they sounded like us. They sounded like they were like, he's got to get his butt out there. He's missing too much time. They weren't saying his job's at stake, but that's about as harsh as criticism you're going to get from them since they work for the Giants.
Right.
They were like, this is a problem. So, there's Cy. Yeah, I guess that could be true. If they are, that no one's really getting out. Every now and then you see Dan Duggan with, like he had to update that. What was it, Corey Black, who's back too? That's another one. Corey Black is back. He said he had a groin injury. So maybe they'll find out who the bad guy is who's leaking to Dan. Maybe it's Corey and Corey's in trouble. I don't know, but it could be that. It just, I mean, there's. To me, this isn't like a big leaky kind of thing. If we were in like week 1 or week 2 and they're talking about injuries, that's different to me than something right now. I don't know. Anyways, we're spending too much time on this. It's just, I find it annoying. I don't think it's a big deal. I just find it annoying. I run a website. I like to know, be able to, when somebody asks me what's wrong with Skattebo, I'd like to be, we don't really know officially what's wrong Skattebo. We're assuming it's his hamstring because all signs point to that, and
right.
I think that's another one Dan had. So, but we don't officially. They've never said he's got a hamstring injury. We don't.
Yeah, in fact, all they said was he re-aggravated it, but he didn't say. They didn't say what he
Right, he
re-aggravated.
re-aggravated.
So that's okay.
So,
So it's the same injury that you haven't yet acknowledged. Okay, got it.
yeah. All right.
So let's stick with the wide receiver core. Neighbors is
Well,
out.
let's big picture offense. You want to do big picture first against the Jets?
Sure. I mean, if you
Well,
want to go, yeah, I was going to break
yeah.
it down.
So big
That's fine.
picture against the Jets is it wasn't as good as the defense. There were times they were struggling to move the ball. I think they had much more problems on the first day until the end of practice when they were in the red zone and things were clicking and it was bang, bang, bang. And there was one point where they had 3 touchdowns in a row with the first team offense. And that made us all feel better. But on the first day, it wasn't that great. We were breaking some runs, but the passing game was there, which lends credence to the fact that when Malik Neighbors isn't there and Darius was very limited in both days, that the wide receiving core on this team is an issue without Malik. So, and the offensive line was leakier on the first day too. There were the Jets were the second day. We have to throw out the fact that Sauce Gardner was sitting out. Quinnen Williams and one of their other pass rushers. I can't remember the other one. The 3 of their top guys on defense were out. We were still without Malik. Darius was still limited on what he was doing. It was kind of a wash. There was we were missing some guys. They were missing some guys, not going full speed. Dexter's kind of been, I don't think Dexter's full bore right now too. But the offense moved the ball better on the Jets. Again, with the caveat that Sauce wasn't out there. And it was better. And the one thing I thought was positive is that you saw that the Giants ground we're making plays on the ground. And the second practice was more geared by both teams for the ground attack. There was far less passing on the second day. And that's why there weren't as many highlights too. And if you looked at the statistics, the quarterbacks weren't throwing the ball as much. So and that's good because I like the teams to get used to the physical nature of run blocking and doing all that stuff too. So, but I think the Giants won that side of the ball too. It wasn't great, but it was positive. And I think the big takeaway still to me is from a negative standpoint is when Malik doesn't play, it's a different offense for us. Some things I will throw out. Theo Johnson seems to be coming on. If you notice, he keeps making plays. I think it's a good news that, and I know I sound like a broken record, but this was a big worry for me. It looks like Russell Wilson is throwing to the tight ends. So we're seeing that repeatedly. That is something that he has not kind of done through his career, but he has been throwing to the tight ends, which I think is a good thing given the talent on this team. I think the Giants have some interesting tight ends now. So I think that's a good sign. I think Wan'Dale was all right. I think they said they threw him out. He was very active. There's nothing dramatic, no big splashy plays. But if you saw some of that today, if you get a chance, there's a mic'd up Wan'Dale Robinson at one of the practices, and he was catching a lot of balls. There was one real nice play that he split 2 guys, and it was a really nice throw to get the ball to him that I thought was interesting. And on the offensive line, I think there were some good things. Like we heard some good things about Evan Neal. We've continue to hear things about Marcus Bowe. You're going to like, John, that the offensive line stood up to the Jets when they were getting a little borderline. So, and apparently Marcus Bowe does have an attitude like we thought he did. And it's not just him, but they were kind of getting into it. They were basically not with my guy. And a lot of the linemen were like that. It wasn't James Hudson, who's sort of kind of the enforcer right now. But it was Van Roten was one of the guys. And I think somebody else got into it, but I apologize. I can't remember. But somebody said it was Art or somebody, but somebody said, yeah, Marcus Bowe was very much in the middle of that and basically saying, and I thought this was true of Marcus Bowe too. Apparently he's got a very even keel personality. He's very steady, which is kind of good thing for an offensive lineman. But if you push a button on him, he'll get. Do we have a Van Roten mic'd up clip? I didn't see that. That'd be cool to see.
Yeah, I'll have to look for that.
Okay.
And then one thing that happened that I had mentioned a while back that there was talk of it and that I kind of thought might be the direction they ultimately go. And that is we heard that Kubis was doing some snaps at center, that they
Yeah.
actually had him in. Now, were they all clean? No. But
Yeah,
it
I had to
does give
laugh. I had to laugh. You immediately jumped on the thread and said, "There
yeah,
it is." And then the
called
next
it.
thing I posted was there was a botch snap at the center. And so
Uh,
I thought,
you know what
John,
though?
you jinxed it.
But I'll say this though:
Yeah.
the Giants clearly like Kubis. They want him to. They would like him to make the team. You're giving him other opportunities to do so.
Yes.
You also are all saying, I want guys that position versatility, right? We don't want to have a backup center who's just the backup center, but you also don't want your backup center to be your starting right guard. That puts your team in a bad position. If something happens at center, now you're doing a two position move, something the Giants have been very anti doing. We saw that last year. So you're really hoping you can have somebody else win. Now, if Evan Neal wins the right guard spot, this opens up the door for a lot of things because Van Roten becomes the backup center and backup guard. Now you don't have to worry about it.
Right.
Now he's there, and now
That's the
somebody else.
ideal. That's the ideal
Right.
outcome. I just don't think there's enough
I,
time.
I'm with
I'm not
you.
saying that
I'm
can't
with you.
happen during the season, but I just don't know if they're going to make that switch.
You brought up a good question again.
Platoon.
BBI,
Yeah.
BigBlueInteractive.com. The idea of what about Van
Platoon.
Roten and Neal kind of splitting time, and somebody made a great point.
The Bob Cratch thing.
Bob Cratch,
Yeah.
you had that. Eric Moore was doing that before Bob Cratch, by the way, because
Right.
Moore failed at tackle. The Giants moved him around. He
Right.
played guard. They had Cratch come in and play guard. He did a little bit of that. So I think you might be onto something because you're going to have to ease. One thing when we get to the game, I think is going to be really telling. How much playing time does Evan Neal get in this game, if any? Assuming he does.
Oh, he better play like half the game. Don't you think he should play half the game?
Oh, I would think so. Assuming he does, I think there's really little to be gained by playing Van Roten very long. You already know what you got with him.
Yes, I agree completely. I agree. Maybe a series.
You don't have to worry about cohesion because Van Roten has been the guy all summer long.
Well, remember too, Van Roten and Luminor play together with the Raiders.
Right.
I mean, they know each other. So yeah.
So I think oh, that's nice.
What?
Nothing. I'm just gonna ban somebody.
I'll try. Not that there's anything wrong with that.
I'll just get rid of that. It's like I've been wanting to do that anyway to somebody who's not a bot. There, I did it. I feel good. No, so how long Neal plays and kind of what that makeup is and do they move him? The fact that they played him at both left and right guard says they want him to make the team. They definitely want him to win a spot, whether it's a backup or a starter. But I like your idea, that platoon thing, because Van Roten's 34 years old.
It's not an ideal situation, but it gets him like, I think we all don't want to go this whole season with Evan Neal not playing and then just leaving free agency. We'd like to get a read on him one way or another at guard at least 1 year. And if he's not ready yet, maybe you can just start sliding him in depending on the situation. Again, people who say that you can't do that, it has been done. And the Giants have done it and other teams have done it. It's not ideal, but it's a way to sort of, in a way, you can kind of keep a player a little bit healthier and fresher and something to think about. Again, I'm not saying they're going to do it, but I've wondered in this situation, would they do it? I think Kubis has to have a good game, though, or he might be practice squad bound if he gets through waivers. And again, you know me, I was very high on him coming into the season, or I was hoping but he didn't have a great game against the Bills. And other players on the line have had good camps and a good game. So I think this is an important game for him. To Kubis is giving him a little bit of credit. He wasn't playing against schlubs against the Bills. He was up against a couple of first rounders. So I think we'll have to see. We'll have to see. But I would think right now, I think it's a good sign that he played center, took some snaps at center. Like you said, that's a good sign for him, but he's got to beat out somebody. The Giants have a little bit more depth than people give them credit for on the offensive line. Well, I still say someone's going to get picked off on waivers that we cut.
Would you say, and I'm glad Andrew brought it up, would you say Josh Ezeudu has really, I think, changed a lot of what the Giants might be thinking with just how well he has played this summer? The fact that he seems to be a different player, a guy with confidence now to go with the physical piece.
Correct. But let's see what he does against the Jets. So if he
Good
gives up
point.
2 sacks against the Jets, we're having a different conversation. So again, I'm not piling on Josh here. It's the same thing with Kubis, the same with all these guys. And like John and I jumped the gun with Evan Neal. Oh my God, we'll have, if Josh Ezeudu plays another really good game this weekend, then yeah, maybe he's a different player now. So, but Josh has got talent. Cy brought this up, and I think it's a good point that he's brought. Josh is a really good run blocker, and so he's another guy. A lot of us thought, why aren't they playing him at guard? And multiple coaches now, and multiple offensive line coaches have wanted him to play left tackle. Maybe we're seeing now why. Maybe he can do it, but again, it was one opponent in one game doesn't make a trend. If he does it against the Jets, and then he finishes that up with the final preseason game a few days later, and because he'll probably play a lot in that game, then yeah. I mean, Josh Ezeudu is a guy because you can play guard, he can play tackle, and if you can play left tackle, yeah, so definitely right now.
This might be kind of an off the wall question, and I don't think either one of us could really answer, but I'm just curious on, is there any possibility this Josh Ezeudu did have a neck injury. And ever since that neck injury, the Giants have not played him at guard. I mean, they basically keep throwing him out at tackle. And I'm wondering if that neck injury, for whatever reason, and I don't think it's like,
I don't know.
Obviously, it didn't separate from playing, but that's definitely a position where you're playing more head up on a guy. Where at tackle, you're a little bit, you don't really get that big guy head up on you. You're kind of playing more of the speed outside. They just haven't moved him back into guard, even when he's failed to tackle.
Right.
So I'm just curious if whatever the reason was that they decided he's a tackle only, but he has turned it around, and it seems to be confidence in many ways versus anything else. Because I mean, the guy is like night and day from this year from last year.
Yeah. I don't know. The one thing that was interesting too, did you see Jackson Dart's comment this week too? He said he's never played in an NFL game that he is as well protected as he was in that preseason game. He said he's never had an offensive line protect him that kept him that clean before. So, and he got hit in that game. There was that one, it was a Kubis play, then a touchdown throw. He got leveled on that play. By the way, what is the Frank and Weezer comment? I'm not sure about it.
Send. I thought it was the one who got banned for a second. Free Frank and Weezer.
So did I. No,
I banned Eli Betts.
Yes. This is a great question. I brought it up in the forum today. I think they keep 4, but now with Turbo making a strong play for a spot on this team too, 4 is tough, but geez, they've got 5 tight ends that you could say they deserve a roster spot. And I don't know. I don't know who the 4. I think they keep 4, and I have a trouble. I can't figure out. Theo Johnson's going to be one of the guys, obviously, but I don't know who the other guys are going to be. I don't think it's a given. I saw in the thread today, most people said beyond Theo Johnson, there's no way that this guy gets cut. And I don't feel that way because I think there's a role for Chris Manhertz on this team because he's the best blocking tight end. But as other people say, if he can't catch the ball, why wouldn't you just bring in an extra offensive lineman?
But I'll say this: they didn't do that last year.
No, they didn't. But they also didn't have this numbers issue.
No, what I mean is they didn't do that when they had obvious situations where they could have. Like Evan Neal was on the side. You could have. I kept bringing it up. Bring him in as an extra blocker, and they still
because they probably trusted Chris Manhertz more than they did Evan Neal.
I think
Chris Manhertz makes this team, but I would not bet on it. I wouldn't bet that he definitely makes it because, again, I think Greg Dulcich is probably the most likely not to make it, but I think he's making a strong case to be on an NFL roster. I think if we cut Greg Dulcich, he's going to end up on somebody else's team.
I think you stumbled on it earlier, and I was not so on board with it. And I think Dulcich is on the team. And the reason why is I think you look at how early on Wilson and Dulcich have a connection.
Yeah, they do.
And that goes back to Denver, and they know each other.
Yeah.
I personally feel like, and David Goodman has said it over here, but I said it in the show last time, and I posted it earlier today. I think Bellinger's the guy that's out. I think there's just something about Bellinger and the way they use him. I don't think they see anything special with him. Fedoni is a guy they drafted, and the only reason he's dropped as low as he did is because he had multiple knee injuries. But this is a guy that brings a lot of height and a big catch radius for them.
I think if they cut Fedoni, someone's going to pick him up. I think Fedoni does not make it to the practice squad, so I don't think they cut him. I don't know about Bellinger. You guys might be right about Bellinger, but I tell you what, I feel a lot better about if Theo Johnson tears his ACL. I'd feel a lot better having Bellinger on this team than not having him on this team, because Bellinger, say what you will about him, he still can block and he can still catch the ball. Is he great at either? No, but he's kind of a decent all-around tight end. I'm not arguing that. Jenna, I'm not saying when we do cut down, I think should have a cut down show. When we do cut down show and we react to this, you may be I don't know. That's what you have an opinion on this. My opinion is I don't know who they're going to cut it.
Well, I have a weird, because last couple of years I've had a weird feeling as you got to cut down that there was one guy that I thought might be the guy to go for whatever reason. It was an odd feeling. And a couple of times it turned out to be right. And I think this is one of those times. I just have this weird feeling that Bellinger, he disappeared. For whatever reason, he disappeared. And these guys drafted him. And yet
he was very little used last year until Theo Johnson got hurt. And then he became the guy again.
But we were so empty at tight end.
He was kind of like invisible. He was invisible for much of the season. They kind of like, he wasn't even like an afterthought to support what you're saying. But to support what I'm saying, when Theo Johnson got hurt, he became the guy again. Now, can Dulcich or Fedoni become the guy? Hopefully, but that's just my concern.
I think they've been trying to replace him ever since they got him. They bring in Waller. They're hoping Waller's going to be the big catching guy. And
that doesn't make sense. When they draft him, they're not looking to replace him.
Well, he once he played, but then he disappeared. He got that eye injury, and then he never really kind of came back where he was doing really well as a rookie until the eye injury.
Right.
And then things kind of tamped down. But for some reason, they would bring in guys, guys basically off the street that they would try to force in. Manhurst seems to be a dayball guy. He seems to be a connection to the Bills thing. Now, whether that remains the same or not, I don't know. But he's the one guy that doesn't fit what all the other guys do. He's strictly a blocker. He's not going to be a receiver. The random touchdown on the goal line doesn't count. He's not a receiver. But the other guys are all receiving threats, or can be receiving threats based on their skill set. And I think Bellinger to me is the one guy that might be out. But if he's not, the question becomes because I still think they're going to go 4.
First of all, Frankenweezer, why is your handle Frank when your real name's Ryan? All right, that's throwing me off. But hi Ryan, I should say. And you're still confusing me here, so I'm just going to leave this alone. But I see what you're saying. But
if you put quotation marks in a post on
Ryan,
YouTube,
right?
It won't let you upload the post. Oh, okay.
But we didn't ban him. I hope we didn't ban you. I don't remember banning. All right.
Well, if you do quotes on your own, I see what he's saying now. I don't know. That's weird. We'll pull back the curtain.
I always thought he was Frank. Now he's Ryan. Damn it.
It's Ron Swanson. It's Duke Silver. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Pull back the curtain, though. When we do the broadcast itself, when we do it live, while it is live in YouTube, we are using StreamYard to broadcast through to YouTube. So we're using the chat, which is connected to YouTube, but we're on our side, we're held to whatever StreamYard allows us to do or don't do. So when we ban somebody in StreamYard, we can't unban them the rest of the show. So that just so you know, when that happens.
And again, for people who missed it, I accidentally banned somebody last time because I hit the wrong button and we couldn't bring them back.
Because we were getting spammed by bots. Dude, that's why. So anyway,
we hit the big time when we get hit by bots. No, but all right, let's get back on track here. We're completely.
Yeah, so sticking to the offense. We're going to finish the offense, and then we want to go strictly to the preview of the game.
Right. So wait. So we did tight ends, but let's.
Well, do we agree that we're going to keep 4, or do you think we're going to keep? I think we're keeping 4.
I think we have to keep 4, but now I'm wondering how the heck do we keep 4 running backs? So this is hard. I mean, this is getting hard. So we probably shouldn't talk about this now. It's another conversation, but I hope they. again, maybe we're overrating our own talent at this point, but if they are going to cut somebody like Bellinger, I hope they make some phone calls and at least try to get a 7th or a 6th rounder and just not just cut the guy. Because if they cut him, somebody I think is going to pick him up. Maybe not, but maybe not because of the salary. We'll see. Yeah, we talked about this earlier.
And I think that's almost a given at this point.
I don't think he plays this preseason, and he's missed most of the camp. So at this point, it's.
And it makes sense for them, right? If it's a hamstring injury, if you missed everything, do you really want to bring him back in game 1 just to be hurt? Like, you're better off letting him IR. He's not the difference between you winning and losing the first 4 weeks with the talent that you have. It's a long season. You're going to need that.
Right.
And I would rather short-term IR a guy. But it comes down to whether or not he can even practice. He hasn't done a thing, not even individual drills.
Right. All right, so let's.
Hey, Neal's back.
So let's. But that's not who we banned. It wasn't Brendan Neal.
You did
Neal.
last week.
It was Neal Hickey, wasn't it?
No, I know, but no. You.
It was Neal Hickey, wasn't it?
No, it was Brendan.
Brendan, let me know, Brendan. Was it you that we accidentally banned? Was it?
No. When did this become a we?
Oh yeah.
Like before it was you. Oh, so I don't know who we Brendan. Okay,
yeah. See, no one banned it. It wasn't him. It was. It was.
I thought that was
another
Neal.
Neal. Oh. No, when you were telling me it was his birthday, I was like that. Yeah. Anyways, all right. We're way off track here. We're gonna lose people here. All right, quarterbacks. Let's go down the line. We're talking about Jets here. So against the Jets, I don't think. Again, there was a weird Bobby Skinner comment. I think he makes one of them once a week. Again, I'm not dissing the guy. He just tends to throw something out there and it sends everyone in a tizzy. He said Russell Wilson was
quote unquote was bad. No, he said was bad.
And I don't see any. Did we throw an interception at all during during the 2 days? I don't think our quarterback threw an interception. So the general so they had trouble at the end of the second day in the 2-minute drill. He completed 4 short passes and ran twice, and our backup kicker missed the 61-yarder. And then right after that, Bobby said Russell Wilson was bad. I don't know where that's coming from, but they didn't throw the ball that much during that practice, and his stats were again. We don't want to make too much of stats. I've said that myself, but Bobby likes stats. His stats were good, so I mean, Dart did all right. I don't think there was anything bad. There were touchdown. I think Wilson's best moments were at the end of the first day. There were 3 touchdowns in a row, 2 throws, and a run by him. They had 2 design runs, which I thought was interesting for scores in the second day. Both, they looked very similar. One was for 15 yards out. One was from 10 yards out. I saw the tape on both. They were both designed to the left, and they were both very well blocked, and they both got into the end zone. So they even had a design run for Wilson, which I thought was interesting, even though he at his age. Wilson threw 2 touchdowns. Theo Johnson again made a score. Little Jordan Humphrey every now and then keeps showing things. And the one thing Jackson Dart seems to be really good at is back shoulder throws. It seems like every practice now he's throwing a back shoulder throw for a touchdown. And I thought it was really, really funny. Tom Rock and John Schmelk were on their podcast, and they were like, "Oh man, it's so nice to have a quarterback now that can make a back shoulder throw. We haven't seen that in years." I'm like, huh? Everyone keeps throwing Daniel Jones under the bus, and without saying it by name.
Yeah, it's like all of a sudden they're like, okay, we are now allowed to go ahead and just do that, because even Totino hints at it.
Talking about
even Totino was hinting at it.
So Jackson was all right. I'm still glad that Winston's on the team. He's kind of a fun guy to be around. He broke down the huddle. I saw in one of the mic'd up ones today. They did a mic'd up for the whole camp, and he broke down the huddle. I think he keeps everyone relaxed. Anything on quarterbacks that you wanted to mention?
Well, I wanted to ask you, because you brought this up before. The playing time seems very specific.
And it was still Dart number 2. It was Dart
Jackson Dart, and then they talked about, and you brought this up 2 weeks ago, I believe. You were concerned about the playing time that Tommy DeVito was getting, just the pass attempts alone.
Well, if he's going to make the team, I want him to get the attempts. But if they're going to cut him,
but what's interesting is, did you notice though they brought up the fact that DeVito and Winston had the same number of pass attempts the other day.
No, I missed that.
Barely any. They both threw 4 passes in the other practice. 4.
Mm-hmm.
There's no way you can tell me that right now that this team isn't Russell Wilson's 1 and Jackson Dart is the 2.
Except, and I think it was Tom Rock and Schmelk again, and I apologize if I got this wrong. I think they said the same thing. I think Schmelk asked Rock this, and he had the same answer that I have said to you. I think if it's early on in the season and they still don't think Dart's ready, they still bring in Winston first. That's my gut. That's just my gut, and that's what Tom Rock
But the only way to do it, though, is
I know
you either 3 quarterbacks.
I know that's the hard.
Winston's the backup.
So I think Winston. I think Dart may be the 3rd quarterback early in the year, and then I think at some point there'll be an announcement before the game that Dart's now the second. Is now Winston's the 3rd quarterback. See what I'm saying? So that's my guess. I still, my feeling is this. Look, I think they're trying to get him. They're doing exactly what I would have done. We talked about this months ago after the draft. I wanted them to do everything they could do to get Dart ready. So give him as many. So I'm thrilled with the fact that they're not pretending. They're not pretending. They're not pretending. We all know Dart's the future, and they're not pretending to go through the motions of, no, there's a pecking order and you can't do that and blah, 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 blah. Dart's getting the second team throws, all of them now, and he's getting more throws than the other 2 quarterbacks. That's the way it should be. I'm thrilled with it. But I'm not sure that they're still going to throw him out there against the Chargers or the Chiefs early. I still think could they? Yes. But my gut says that. And Tom Rock said the same thing that he didn't hear what I said. I'm just saying he said the same thing that I'm saying. That was his guess too. And that's what I think. And that's why I think Devito's probably the odd man out. And I don't think Devito makes it to the practice squad either. I think there are some teams out there that would get him at least for their 3rd quarterback.
I think you're right on the last part you just said. I think you're right on the other piece except for the one part. I think Jackson Dart's going to be the backup quarterback.
You mean on opening day?
I think on opening day. I think Jameis Winston was signed to potentially be the backup or be the backup to Dart because he's signed for 2 years. I think the Giants plan on, and I think maybe Winston's okay with it. He maybe knows that that's what this is going to be, that he's long-term. He's going to be here with the Giants for 2 years. Now, that 2-year deal also makes him tradable because the team would want to have control over a guy for more. They don't want to just trade for a guy that they know is just a half a year and you're paying all this extra money. If they can have that extra year of control over him, that makes it a little bit easier. Wilson's not going anywhere. Dart, I think when he showed against the Bills, I think that changed everything. I think Dayball's guy is Jackson Dart. I think he's going to be the backup quarterback. If Wilson has an issue in game, I do agree with you. I thought before, because if you go back a number of episodes before, I said maybe Winston's the guy and Dart's the emergency, just so you don't have fans booing and saying throw Dart in when Wilson struggles. But the second Wilson comes out, I think Dart becomes the immediate game starter. But now I think he's played too well. I don't think they're going to back off from it. I think he's going to be the backup quarterback.
Right. Well, I just also want to back up for a second too before people think that we're like, I don't want people to think we're being mad at Bobby Skinner here. I just think sometimes he says things that don't. Now, to his credit, he was at practice. He was there.
Sure.
John wasn't there. I wasn't there. We weren't
Correct.
there. But according to the people that were there on the last day of practice, Russell Wilson was 8 of 12 with 2 touchdowns and 1 running touchdown. Jackson Dart was 4 of 7 with 1 passing and 1 rushing touchdown. Again, those numbers show you how much they were focusing on the running plays on the second day of practice. So if you're 8 of 12 with 3 touchdowns, I have a problem using the word bad. Bad to me, when you use the word bad, it's, oh my God, you threw 3 interceptions, or you threw 2 interceptions. You know, that to me, that
you're not running the offense. You're getting penalties. You're getting
that's bad. I mean, so I just have a problem with saying, and Bobby's got a big audience. He's got a lot of influence. People listen to him. So I just, and I enjoy. That's why I retweet him, and that's why I actually post his stuff, because, he's a valuable asset. It's just every now and then he'll say something, like some player stinks, and it's like, it's too early. It's just too early to tell. Anyways, I don't want to spend too much time on that,
Nope,
but
there you go.
I think the quarterbacks played well. I think the concern still is at wide receiver. What I said, when Malik Neighbors isn't there, and again, Slayton wasn't full go either. But receiver, Bo Collins.
There you go.
All right, so he was winning. He was coming up the depth chart. He was getting first team snaps. They roll him out for media day. All of a sudden, he's hurt. He misses a week. He comes back, and he's instantly back in with the first team. Again, a lot of that's because Malik's out. Darius is hurt. They're limited, and Jalen's not playing. But Bo Collins immediately goes back into, and then Jackson's throwing him the ball, and Russell Wilson's throwing him the ball. And there was 1 or 2 touchdowns to him, 7-on-7, and I think one in the team drills. So Bo Collins, again, I don't want people to think, well, Bo Collins is the answer, but Bo Collins is definitely in the picture. And here he's a guy that they obviously like. I mean, so he comes back and he's immediately in there, and Russell Wilson's already throwing to him. Right?
Yeah. No, I agree. I think one of the things that is going to play a role in the tight end group and the running back group in terms of numbers is what the Giants think at wide receiver right now. If early in the season, so let's say for whatever reason, I'm just going to for now, I'll just use Hyatt as the example. Let's say Hyatt goes on short-term IR. The Giants keep, Smith is going to be the return guy. So he's now kind of the backup wide receiver after the first 3, he's probably 4. Pick anybody you want, little Jordan Humphrey, Bo Collins, whoever. They might only go 6. Go with the 4 tight ends, go with the 4 running backs, because we'll use some of them in the passing game early on for those first few weeks while we get a guy coming off IR. Maybe we go and pick up a veteran after week 2 when we're not on the hook for
Right.
full salary kind of deals. They can go and, it's a different thing on what you can do. So it depends, but man, that wide receiver core, after you go Neighbors, and he's a question mark with his injury, whatever it
Right.
is, but he's still the guy. Wandell, Slayton, it's wide open after that.
Right. I would feel better at this point if Gabe Davis is on the team. That's how I feel right now. But
Are you leaning that way? Do you get the feeling that the Giants are going to go, whether it's Gabe Davis or a different veteran, they're going to go get somebody and not just leave it so open after the first 3?
Unless Jalin plays in one of the next 2 games or both the games and just plays lights out, I'm very nervous about that spot. Or Bo Collins, maybe Bo Collins. And I just real quick, and I don't want to spend a lot of time on this. You're correct. This is exactly what he's talking about. But again, remember the context. There were 1 2-minute drills at the end of practice. The Jets didn't even get into field goal range. The Giants got into a 61, but Wilson completed 4 short passes and ran twice with no Malik, no Darius Slayton out there. He had a undrafted rookie free agent, and I'm assuming the other guy was little Jordan Humphrey. I don't know who the other receiver would have been, but is it fair to say he had a bad practice because he couldn't get into field goal range on the final drive? In a practice where he was 8 of 12 with 2 touchdowns and a running touchdown.
And to be fair,
I won't use the word bad. I mean, that's my problem. And I just want to finish my thought on this in case Bobby's, because I don't want Bobby to be mad at me. When you say he's bad, it implies he was bad, period. Overall. And I just don't.
Because it wasn't a detail. It was just Wilson was bad. That's what it said, was bad. It didn't say anything else. So it just was bad.
No interceptions, no turnovers.
To SPP Williams, your point is valid, but I will say Bobby when he was talking about not moving down the field and their only production was in the red zone, that was actually the day before. It was Wednesday's practice at Giant when it was at the
That
Giant
was
field.
the end of practice. Yes, that was the end of
They didn't
practice.
do it wasn't the red zone success that he was talking about. He said he was bad. Period.
Yeah, I
That
was talking about, and that would be more. That would make more sense. Would be if it was about the first day. But Bobby's tweet
yes,
wasn't about the first day; it was about the second day.
it was day 2.
So
Yeah.
so again, and then the problem with the first day practice is our offensive line wasn't blocking as well as it did the second day of practice. So we'll see. All right, we're past the 1 hour mark.
Yeah. So
Let's talk Jets. You want?
yeah, let's talk about the
game.
game and yeah, yep. So first off, let's start with what are you expecting from the Giants in terms of let's do the starters. Who do you think are the Giants going to play the starters past a quarter? Is it just specifically some players might only play and the
Oh,
rest of the stars play longer? What are you seeing?
everyone's guess is as good as mine. I mean, my guess is what I said yesterday, or when was our last show? 2 days
Tuesday
ago.
night.
2 days ago.
Tuesday night.
I'm guessing a quarter for the starters, and then maybe Dart plays second and third quarter, but that's just a guess. I would keep playing Dart like 2 quarters. I just want him to get as much practice as possible. I would guess a 1 quarter for the starters, but it's just a guess. You know, if they don't play, I'll be a little disappointed. I'd be a little confused too. I did have to laugh at Brian Dable today. Did you get a chance to read Brian Dable's?
Yeah, I saw. Yeah, I saw
About him saying how he felt it's so important that people play in games.
Yes.
Like,
You were all over that.
Well, I mean, come on. And I got crapped on Twitter when I said that too. And people are like, "You don't think people can learn?" I'm like, "Yeah, I think."
But why did it take 3 years to figure it out?
Yeah, and I'm glad they did. But come on, you still got to point out the fact that he didn't do it, and that probably contributed to us starting off slowly in the other year. It was a mistake, and anyways, I don't. All right, so if he doesn't play them after what he said, I'd find it a little weird, right? Wouldn't you?
Well, I would think, especially when some of the guys like Neal, right? Neal had been injured, didn't practice the day before, comes back the next day, and he's playing in a physical. He's not just working on drills to the side. He's coming in. He's playing. Wilson started the game against Buffalo. There's no doubt in my mind that the starters are playing in this game. It's how long does Wilson go before they go to Dart? That would be my question. I think Wilson plays at least the first quarter, and then Dart takes it from there, depending on how the offense does. If the offense struggles, I think Dayball might just keep putting them back out there a little bit just to see what they can get going.
Brennan, you missed our talk about Tibbs. We talked about him. We had good stuff at the beginning of this. You got to tune in when the show starts, man. We'll talk about him. We did. We had some good stuff on him. One other thing too, with Ryan. There are 2 receivers who I thought would make more noise coming into camp who have been very quiet, at least from what I can tell. And one is Juice, and the other one's Daquan Felton. And they both gave him pretty sizable, bonuses. It's the other guys that I didn't think would have as much of a chance that are making more noise. I can't tell you how many Notre Dame fans told me Bo Collins stinks, and shows you just never know. And then the other one is Dalen Cambray. You would have thought, what, 10 catches in his college career, and I think Dalen. I think he's got to show more to make the team too.
He had a 50.
I'm not even sure Juice is better do something because Juice. I mean, am I wrong? Has Juice done?
No, he's done. I'm shocked. Actually, I kind of thought you would see him with Dart. I thought he would
because of what Ryan said. Yeah,
and nothing. And I think part of it is because Dart is playing a lot with the 1s and the 2s. Juice is not there. So even when there's a hole at wide receiver, Bo Collins, Dalen Cambray, Little Jordan Humphrey, even Zach Pascal, those guys are obviously up first, and Juice is way down. I think he's practice squad material.
You know what's damning to me is we get injuries at wide receiver. They sign Gunnar Olszewski, and he becomes Jameis Winston's favorite target all the time.
Right. He comes
and he was never a guy that you heard anything when he was on the Giants before in terms of receiver. So it's like Gunnar has moved past Juice and Daquan. So again, they gave them sizable money, so I could still see them ending up in the practice squad. But man, I make a play. I mean, I don't see them. I mean,
there's a reason why they didn't get drafted, and we're seeing that happens. I mean,
Right, but remember, Cy had juice pretty high going into his last year because he didn't kind of live up to his. And so the talent's there. And
sure.
Daquan Felton certainly has talent, but again, yeah, you just never know. It's a lesson for UDFAs. The guys that you think are going to be the guys often flame out, and the guys that you think have no shot. I joked with Rich Soybert about this when they signed Rich Soybert. I was like, and wasn't he Western Illinois?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
give me a break. Well, this guy's not going to do anything. Camp fodder, camp body. So it just shows you. All right. I'm sorry, I went off on a tangent. What was your original?
No, we were talking about who's going to play. So on the offensive side, I mean, I think offensive line. Hudson's going to play some, but I don't know that they'll keep him out at tackle for very long. I think Ezeudu is going to get a lot of playing time to see what he can do. Bo's going to get playing time. I'm assuming Illuminor will play some. And then it's guard. It's right guard. How fast do they pull Van Roten and move Neal in? And how much do we see Neal
with the first team? You're talking about
with first team with a combination of what we want to call ones and twos. I
think when Garrett, what am I doing? Russell Wilson.
You were hoping we had a different wide receiver.
Yeah. When Russell Wilson's in the game, I think our starters will be in the game.
Yes.
Minus Malik Neighbors. Who else are we forgetting? Who's hurt on offense?
Well, Slayton may or may not play. That'll be interesting.
Yeah, that's a really interesting one. Is Slayton even out there? Obviously, Skattebo's out. Manhurst has been banged up. We don't know with what. I guess that's it. Well, Darius has been kind of limited. So I think the offensive line minus the hurt players and what you just said, do they want to get a look at Evan Neal at right guard? Does Evan Neal start at right guard because they want to just get a look at him? I would. If you're even thinking about this, seriously, isn't this the time to do it?
I agree with you, except for the fact that I think you do want to have a dress rehearsal of the bulk of your starting line for cohesion, because I don't think, like you said, he's not going to be the starter. But I do think he's probably going to play the bulk of the game against New England at guard, assuming no injury.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. It'd be interesting to see who starts at right guard. And so I'm going to predict that they play kind of like a quarter, like 2 series, maybe 3, depending on how well they do. If they have the ball twice and they have 7, 8, 9 play drives, I think we'll see them maybe 2 drives. If it's like 3 and out, we might see them 3 or 4 times. And then I think we see Dart, and that's my guess. I'm also curious to see if the Jets again hold out Sauce and Quinton Williams and some of these other guys, because that in a way you want them to kind of be at full strength too, but we'll see. My big thing for the Jets preseason game, more than the quarterbacks, is can they build upon what they did against the Bills on the offensive line? So so if they haven't, we have another. Let's be honest, and depending on who plays with the Jets are really good on up front. So if we can, and the Bills aren't bad at all, and we talked about that before. So if they can have another good game up front, relatively clean game, maybe some more running, then that'll be me the biggest positive. And of course, I want to see Dart do really well again too. I would be a little bit cautious to warn people again. The passing game isn't going to be pretty because of who's out there at wide receiver and who's not out there at wide receiver. But there's a big opportunity here. If Darius and Malik are out, can Bo Collins with the first team actually do something, or does he get completely shut out? That to me is going to be kind of be telling. What does Wandale do when Malik's not out there and Slayton's not out there? And who's the other outside guy if Darius isn't playing? So that's why I'm a little bit thinking that the passing game is we might see what we saw against the Bills, tight end, running back, with the first teams in there, and then when we get into the second team, then you see the little Jordan Humphrey throws and things like that. So
we did a ton of screens. I like seeing the screens work. I don't want you to live off the screens, though. That tells me that you don't have anything down the field. So it'll be interesting to see. I think little Jordan Humphrey's got a real shot at making this team. The one reason is, regardless of what his name says, he's one of the bigger receivers on the team. So he gives you that size presence. Jalin Hyatt is running absolutely out of time. Someone brought up made a point, and I thought it was really an odd point to try to make on BBI, that basically tried to say that Banks is unbelievably horrible at cornerback and Hyatt is far more talented at wide receiver. I don't know how you can come to that conclusion, and everybody knows I'm fairly anti-Banks. So the fact that I say that Banks means more to this team than Hyatt does should
Right.
tell you Hyatt has done nothing on the field, nothing. And
No, and Googs said it on BBI. I mean, is Jalin Hyatt gonna break the 9 catches he had last
right?
year? I mean, so that's how bad it was last year. And again, it's not all on him, but now this year it is. I mean, he doesn't have an excuse now. So
And some of it might be attitude. We don't know.
no, well, we got to be careful with that.
No. What I'm saying is some of it might. The video of him coming out in the draft. We all applauded it because he was talking to the Dallas Cowboys wide receiver coach.
Right.
But now that you look through it, that coach wasn't asking him anything crazy. He was basically saying something, and Hyde didn't like it.
Right.
Well, what kind of receiver am I? Well, right now what you show me is you're a guy who can run straight down the field, and if you don't get the ball,
Right.
you don't seem to be that involved.
But that's when divas and wide receivers go hand in hand. Again, I'm not defending him.
They're producing, though.
I think it's an issue. I think it's a possible thing, but I just think we have to be careful about that. I think it's a little. I think the more interesting thing is what you brought up earlier. That license plate guy seemed to be speculating there was something there. But we got to be careful with that kind of stuff. I mean, that gets into the realm of, we don't want to create a narrative on it. So the problem, one of the things is when you write something down, you see something in print or you hear it like on a YouTube video, people start taking it for true, for gospel, and that was like, again, my argument this week when somebody posted that they felt when they went to the Giants practice, they felt the Giants came out flat. And I'm like, what do you mean they came out flat? They kicked the Jets' ass in the practice. What are you talking about? And it came down to the gentleman. And again, I don't mean any disrespect to him because he's a valuable poster on the site, but he basically was saying, well, the Jets were out on the field first, and they were out on the field last because they were running sprints. And he said, I missed most of the 11-on-11s except for one series. So I'm like, what are you basing? So they were on the field first because they were the traveling team. So they got off the bus and they immediately had to go to the field. And they were probably running sprints after practice because they just got their asses kicked. So I don't understand what you mean by flat. I mean, flat to me would mean like the Giants were the ones that were getting their asses kicked. So anyway, when you write that down, it starts to take a life on it. So there were people in that thread that were already starting to say, this is Dable's MO. They start off slow. And I'm like, what are you guys talking about? We won that practice.
It's practice, by the way. We're talking practice.
I know that, but you know how people.
No. What I mean is that everybody, let's settle down. It's not. This is one of the things why I have a problem with not to pile on to what we talked about a little while ago. This is why I have a problem when somebody like Bobby Skinner says he was bad. We have zero idea of what the Giants were trying to do at any particular time in these practices. There's times where I believe that they go with a specific play, and the job is to go with the play the way that it is. We want it to go so that guys have to block, and it's not meant to be like, oh, whoops, that's not there. Let's go over here. It's designed to let's do this on purpose. And I don't care what they're doing defensively. I want to see my guy run the route. I want to see the block. So you don't know. So when you say, well, he threw it how do you know that he wasn't told throw it there? Like, you're throwing to that guy. We want to see that play.
But let's give them the benefit of the doubt. And the point of the end of the 2-minute drill was for them to score because it was the 2-minute drill. They didn't get in the scoring position. But he didn't throw a pick six. He didn't throw an interception. He didn't fumble. I mean, that's what I mean. That's bad. I mean, that's bad. Again, and SPP said earlier, so it would be call it mixed. Maybe you want to say mixed. But again, as I was following the practice, and it wasn't the clips weren't as readily available as they were in the other training camp practices. I was like, oh, this is good. This is good. This is good. And then you could see the reaction of other people. And I wasn't being selective with the tweets I was grabbing. I was grabbing guys from the Jets reporters, Giants reporters, fans that were in the stands. And there were some clips from fans in the stands. And I kept going, oh, this is good. This is good. This is good. I was waiting for something bad to happen. And there wasn't any that bad. And Jets fans were getting pissed off. I don't know if you should read the reaction of the Jets fans to Connor Hughes. They were ready to hang him because he
Oh,
was
I
the
saw.
messenger. He
They
was
were
the
mad at him.
messenger.
Yeah.
He was telling them the Giants are kicking the Jets' butts. Not in those, but the Jet fans didn't like it. And they were like, fuck you. So it's like, he's just telling you what he's seeing. Abdul Carter and Brian Burns are terrorizing your quarterback. And he's reporting that. So, all right. So on defensive side in the Jets game, my big thing is this. I want to see the run defense still, and I would like to see them guard against the scrambling or the RPO runs of Fields better than they did in the practice, because they're going to have to get rid of
Because you're going to
use
face
that with
that.
Jaden
Yeah.
Daniels. They're going to face that with Jaden Daniels. So I would like to see good run defense. Obviously, I'd like to see them get after the quarterback, but I know that's going to be there. I don't want them to give away too many of their tricks. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, sure.
the funky stuff that they're going to do. I don't worry about that too much, but I want to see them play the run. I like to see Cordell Flott play a good game. So Tay Banks does have competition. If Tay does play, I'd like to see him not face guard guys down the line, and that those are the big things with me. I don't know if there's anything with you.
No, I'm with you. If Flott plays, I'm curious to see. I assume he's going to play, but we don't know that for sure yet.
Oh, he was in practice.
But he is a guy coming off he's only had the practice, but we assume he's going to play. I'm curious to see if the staff plays him the same way they played Banks against the Bills, meaning Flott is on the field a lot. Like you're trying to prove your way to the position.
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah.
You know, it'll be interesting to see if they do that. Now, if both guys play, now you don't necessarily, now you can see why they might not do it. But in a preseason game, week 1, there's no reason why you're not going to your third, fourth, fifth corners and know that you're doing that for this game, because you just don't want the guy to get hurt. They didn't do that. Banks played a ton. So I'm curious to see what Flott does after having no game the week before.
You know what I'm most worried about with Flott is that he finishes the game. That's what I'm most worried about, because he always gets nicked up.
He does get hurt. We
cannot afford him to, and this is a good question too. My computer just froze. Sasha had. That's a really good question. Sasha, I have said this before. I am not one of these people that say put people in bubble wrap, but I tell you, Carter is one of these guys I would strongly consider putting in bubble wrap. Brian Burns is another, and I think Brian Burns is ready to go. I think Brian Burns is ready. I just do not want anything to happen to Brian Burns and Abdul. I don't want anything to happen to any of these guys. But we've got some difference makers on this team right now. And I think it's starting to dawn on some people like Marcus Spear. If you get a chance, guys, if you get a chance to see it, it was posted on BBI. Eddie NYG posted it, but it's also on my Twitter feed. Watch what Marcus Spear said about the Giants. People are starting to notice that they've got players on this team. So if they can get decent quarterbacking out of Russell Wilson, this team potentially has. I just wish we had another wide receiver. I really wish we had like another guy that other teams were scared of to take pressure off of Malik. But we don't have that right now. And then I want to give credit, because we've kind of been worried about this. Graham Gano, 350-yard. I know one of them went off the uprights, but he had 350-yard field goals. So the early returns on Gano coming back were good. Sure. So
just don't get hurt, because he gets hurt every year. So don't get hurt.
Well, 2. I mean, again.
Oh, the last
2 out of 5, but yes.
Oh,
but
last 2 years. It's and he's getting older, so that makes it.
Yes.
You know.
Yes.
I think one of the other things I want to see is, I don't really want to see Carter that much, quite honestly, because I don't want how Bowen plans to use him to be on film for like Washington to see.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, because if you start lining them up in the middle, you're kind of letting now teams can go, oh, they're going to do that, but it's way different when you see him actually do it.
Noticed. They saw him. Remember that early clip from training camp that someone leaked out of Carter being in the middle, and that got out?
Yes.
All the Giants fans are like, oh, they're going to do it. They're going to do it. I guarantee you that caught everyone's attention in the NFL, and then they did it against the Bills. But I agree with you. I just don't
There's nothing to be gained. If you remember, was it Thibodeau's rookie year? Did he get hurt in the week 3 preseason game against the Bengals? I believe he hurt his knee in that game.
We lost Thibodeau. Thibodeau has gotten hurt the last 2 years,
but he got hurt in the preseason,
and he got hurt. And he got hurt in his rookie year, right?
Yeah, I think
because we were afraid it was serious. It looked like an ACL.
It looked like he might be done.
It looked like an ACL, and I was like, I was really pissed. I was upset when that happened. I was like, oh my god, you got to be kidding me.
So do you expect that it'll be Dart, then Winston, Devito? Or Dart and then Winston, and maybe we don't.
I'm not going to change what I said. And again, I'm just guessing. Anyone on chat his guess is as good as mine. I'm going to say what I said a couple nights ago. I think Wilson plays a quarter. Again, it depends on how long the drives go, but roughly a quarter. I would play Dart the second and third quarter, and then I would have one of the two quarterbacks handle the fourth quarter. That's what I would do. And then whoever doesn't get the time plays more time in the third game. You know what I mean? So like if Devito doesn't get into this game, Devito plays a lot at the end of the third and last preseason game. Will they do that? I don't know. I don't think I would go one quarter per quarterback like they did sort of last week. I think I would get Dart more snaps.
I think this game is like we said, it's the dress rehearsal game. So if you want to see Jackson Dart's progression, this is the game, because he's still going to be playing against guys on the Jets that are going to be meaningful contributors to the team, if not even starters. Mm-hmm. Some of them starters, others will be meaningful contributors. You want to see him play. And I think Wilson plays a quarter. I'm seeing Dart a lot. Again, I'm still thinking the Giants are lining him up to be the backup quarterback. He's going to get his time. Winston, I think, will get time. DeVito's the guy, though. The Giants they might be trying to see if there's any action out there for him. Like if somebody's desperate for a quarterback, if somebody loses a quarterback this weekend and they don't have a backup, DeVito's a legitimate NFL backup quarterback. He's played in the NFL.
All right. So I want to give everyone a heads up. So John and I are going to be live during the Jets game on the weekend. But I also think John and I really need to do a show just dedicated to what the hell we would do on the roster. Because you and I could go back and forth on it.
Yep.
I think there are some really tough roster decisions to make with some guys here. What do they do at quarterback? What do they do at tight end? What do they do at running back? But there are some places where we need some help. And we've talked about a cornerback before. Do they look at other player on defensive line? I don't think they will, but we've talked about that before. I'll throw one guy obscure thing that I'm very curious about. When they played the Bills and we were doing it live, Corey Durden came out and played right away on the defensive line after they sat down the starters. It wasn't DJ Davidson. It wasn't Darius Alexander. Corey Durden, who was like towards the bottom of the depth chart. And he wasn't bad. And every now and then you do hear his name. So I'm very curious, does Corey Durden come out of the game? Does he play ahead of DJ Davidson again? Because DJ Davidson, you've mentioned it, has been making noise lately.
Right,
it wasn't just the sack in the Bills game. He's been making noise in the practices. Other people have mentioned it too. Is Corey Durden somebody we're sleeping on that no one's even focused on? I'd be curious to see. Or was that just they wanted to get a look at him and they brought him out early? I'd be very curious to see where he's in the pecking order when we watch. I know that's a really weird thing, but that's the kind of thing I look for.
Well, I mean, he might have been strictly a nose, so they wanted to just, you've already had Nunes Roches, you're not playing Dexter. Dexter wasn't playing, so you want to bring strictly nose just to see if he's
right. Well, that's kind of Davidson and Jordan Riley too. You know what I mean? Like Jordan Riley
came the guy who's kind of really disappeared though.
Yeah, he has. Yeah, he was kind of late in the game. So I mean, anyway, that's just. I know that's a weird thing.
I'm with you. I think we should do a roster thing like that. There's a lot going on with this roster right now.
Yeah, and I'm looking real quick to see if there's anyone that we're forgetting. And I will, just for Brendan Neal's benefit here. And again, it was Neal Hickey that we banned. It wasn't Brendan Neal. So
back to the weed again.
So I hope I
banned bots.
So Yes. I want to. I'm trying to protect myself here. Brennan, Kayvon, Bob Papa. I'm sorry, Carl Banks said Kayvon was really good in the Jets practice yesterday. He said he was really setting the edge. And Carl, if anyone knows about linebackers setting the edge, it's Carl Banks. So he was. If you want to see it, watch that video that just came out on. It's in the beginning of the video, and I think we're learning that in terms of explosive pass rushing ability, it's Brian Burns and Abdul Carter are the top two guys on this team. I don't think Kayvon's going to ever be able to catch up to that, but I think Kayvon has a role now as sort of like a guy who can rush the passer, but in a different way. He's more power, and hopefully he can hold the edge for this team. I still wonder when he hits free agency if he wants to go elsewhere, though, because I think he might see the writing on the wall here. I wouldn't surprise me if he goes back to California or out west, I should say.
Now this is year 4, right? We did pick
Yeah.
up. We picked up
Right,
his
and he'll be on
year
here one more year, but I think
one more year.
he's thinking about. Don't you think he'd be thinking? I mean, we'll see. That's we'll be get. I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm glad he's here. I don't agree with the people who have said trade him for a corner right now, and Cy was very much against that. I like Cy. I like that we're developing an identity, and if somebody does get nicked up, we don't have to worry about it. It's like the running back situation right now. Have you noticed Giants fans aren't really freaking out about Skattebo because we're not in terrible shape at running back right now. So if we didn't have as deep as we are at running back, people would be kind of more upset about Skattebo right now.
If we had another guy that was a level lower than Thibodeau that you could say, well, he could play, like you would never trade LT or whatever like that. But when you had an Andy Head and you had a Byron Hunt, right, that would have given in a different world, that would have given you some flexibility. We don't have anybody after the 3. There, Tom and Fox, Ford, those guys. I mean, Golson's really going to be a lineman. He's going to be kind of an edge lineman guy mixing in and out. Right. He's not going to take Thibodeau's spot.
And they wanted Victor Dimukeje. I can never say his name. Dimukeje. They wanted him to be the backup guy who some people thought was a sneaky signing for them, but because he tore his pec in the spring, they were left with what you just said, Tamon Fox and Trace Ford. So Trace Ford could end up in the practice squad. Or he could sneak under the 53. Maybe he could be a surprise guy.
Your advantage that you have right now to cover your corner issue is your pass rush. So you don't weaken your pass rush just to add a corner, because now all you've done is you've made it a net negative. Like you what's the point? I'd rather continue to just rush the passer, and I'll go get me, like we talked about, a veteran guy. I think we're going to get a veteran corner. I think it's going to be an old. So count on. I can't say it for sure. I'm not inside the room, but I would bet dollars to donuts that they're going to get a guy, an older veteran cornerback that they're going to bring in to be that veteran presence that if they have to play him, they know they can count on him.
Yeah. And I think the one guy that is really flying under the radar because he was hurt and we haven't seen him as Giants fans yet, who has a chance to be a good player for us, is Chauncey Golston.
Right.
I think no one's really been talking about him because they haven't seen him, but I'm really curious of how they use him again with this whole package. So they said 3 technique, 5 technique, 4 technique with him, move him around. He's another movable guy. It's going to be fun. If we can stop the run, they're going to be able to rush a passer. As long as Tay or Flott or whoever we get out there isn't a disaster, I think the defense, there's no reason this defense to be not top 10. So, like I said, the pressure's on Shane Bowen. Today, it's early, it's camp, it's training camp, it's preseason. It doesn't matter. But to date, it seems like they're doing a good job against the run and rush, and he's figured out how to use all 3 of those edge rushers together. So my fingers are crossed on this. We just have to keep it going. The proof in the pudding is going to be opening day. Jaden Daniels in Washington. Do they pull off the upset? Do they have him running for his life? That kind of thing. So, when he goes back and tries to hit his Hail Mary like he did against the
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 Bears.
Chicago Bears. Is he getting his ass slammed into the turf, and we have the ball and we're all celebrating? That's what I'm hoping for. So.
Yep, I agree. So with that, I think unless you have something else,
No, it's
we
just
have the
again.
game.
It was a good two. It was a good. I don't think the practices could have gone much better for the Giants, especially
Right.
given who was there and who wasn't there. Malik wasn't there. I don't, and we didn't get any significant injuries as far as I can tell. They got. I think the Giants must. I have to think they're pretty happy about what they got out of it. And now let's just get out of the preseason game with another solid performance without injuries. And then we've got a game on Thursday, and then it's real. I mean, then we're John and I are coming on here. We're talking about cuts. That's how
Yeah.
close we are. So we're this is almost real, guys. So
We're going to stream the game on Saturday. We're not going to stream. I'm going to speak for us. We won't be able to stream next Thursday. I'm going to be driving to Virginia next Thursday, so I'll be
what?
gone.
That's the first I've heard this. What?
Well, you already know. We're not going to do just the Patriots game. No, but I have unfortunately I have funeral services to go to next
Oh, is that?
weekend.
Oh, I didn't
That's
know
right.
that was that
Yep.
day. Oh, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
so I'll be
Sorry.
driving to Virginia next Thursday. I'll be gone through the weekend, but we'll do stuff prior to that, leading into the game. We'll cover a bunch of stuff. We'll cover after the game, but we are streaming this Saturday. Then we got a whole bunch of stuff leading up to the season. We're going to obviously preview. We do cut down. We're going to then preview the entire season like we did last year. I can't even remember. I think we were pretty close on the Super Bowl predictions on a couple of them. I know Chiefs
Oh,
were
I have
one.
no idea.
I had the Chiefs. I had the Chiefs and the Lions. It was ultimately Chiefs and the Eagles, but we were wrong about the Giants. But that's
I
a
have
whole.
no idea. I don't have no idea. You always put me on the spot with that. All right. Yep.
So we got plenty of time.
We have plenty of time, and if always like feedback on the store that we set up for the merchandise. Not crazy about the shipping costs, but we don't have any control over that. So we may look into other options, but we'll appreciate feedback on what we're offering and stuff like that if you guys have feedback. So.
Yeah, and it's the links there. It's in the description. But yeah, give it a shot. Hopefully, I'll have some merch here. I'm hoping it gets in time for me to.
Oh yeah, me
maybe
too.
wear it for Saturday. That'd be cool. But I'm not sure.
Everything will taste better in a
Yeah.
inside BBI glass.
That's right. That's right. So with that
Thanks.
said, like, subscribe, comment. We really appreciate it. We surpassed, of all of our videos, we surpassed 200,000 total views just the other day, which was awesome. So really appreciate it, and we're gonna keep doing this. And a real quick shout out to Ryan Dunleavy. Hey Ryan, get off the Saquon Barkley bullshit. Nobody cares
Oh my
anymore.
god.
Could you
Oh my
just
god.
move
Oh my
on
god.
for the love of everything
Oh my
holy?
god. I mean, seriously. I mean, oh my god. It's
Yeah.
painful. Yeah.
So, but he
All
was
right.
too busy banning people on Twitter. So there you
Was
go.
he really banning
Yes,
them?
yes, he
Oh
banned them
god.
all because they were like going against the whole thing about Barkley, and he just banned them. So anyway, that being said, like, subscribe. We'll catch you Saturday night, 6:55. I have it starting, so the game starts at 7. We'll be waiting for you.